This is Scott the Fix-It Guy. Today we have an LG washer dryer combination that is not draining, so we're going to be replacing the drain pump. Pretty common on the LG machines that the drain pump fails, unfortunately kind of early, maybe at the 3rd or 4th year mark. So I'm just draining out all the water that's left in the machine, and it took about 3 times I had to empty out that frying pan to get all the stuff out. And next thing I'll do is just remove a couple of screws here on the front panel. And this is a plastic piece that is covering the drain assembly. There's just 2 Phillips head screws you got to pull out. Pull the whole drain piece out. We've got all the water drained out. Now I'm removing 2 small Phillips head screws here at the bottom. They're about 3 inches apart, and they're part of what's holding the front panel on. There's a couple of screws at the bottom, and there's a couple of screws at the top. I'm going to bring the washing machine back down flat again, and I'm going to remove the little spring clamp that goes on the rubber gasket by prying it off with a Phillips or with a standard head screwdriver. Then I'll push the gasket in so that it's no longer connected to the front panel. Next, I'm removing the detergent drawer by pushing down on a little tab and pulling it out. And I'll be removing the 2 Phillips head screws that are holding on the front panel that are underneath the detergent drawer. These are long stainless steel Phillips head screws. They're about 1 inch long. So get those 2 out, and then usually you remove the top panel, but you can also just pry the front. On this model, you can pry the front panel out with the standard head screwdriver. It's just a few clips holding it in. If you remove the top panel, it's a little bit faster and easier. Just showing a different method in case you had a dryer on top and you weren't able to easily remove the top panel. You can do it this way, just a little bit harder to pry this out. So once you get the control panel out of the way, there's a couple of Phillips head screws underneath it that are holding on the front panel. There's one in the right and one in the left-hand corner. We'll zip those out. And then we should be able to pull the panel towards you, and then you have to lift it off of a couple of clips at the bottom, and then it's good to remove the door switch wires. So just pull down hard to remove the modular connector, and then we can see the drain pump right there in the drain motor. I'm removing the 2 spade connectors that are bringing power to the motor, and now I'm going to remove 2 Phillips head screws that are holding the drain assembly into position. And then there's a couple of hoses we're going to remove. This bigger black one that is bringing water from the tub to the drain pump, using a pair of pliers to remove the spring clamp. It should come off pretty easy. And then there's a gray one above it that's bringing water from the pump out to the back of the washing machine. And I'm going to be doing the same thing, just pulling that off. So now I've got the screws out, I've got the power wires off, I've got the 2 hoses off, and I should be able to now grab the whole pump assembly and pull it back slightly and then out. So now I can use a Phillips head screwdriver and remove the old motor off of the pump assembly. There's 3 Phillips head screws holding it on. I found a little dime that was caught in there too. And then I'll grab the new motor. These only cost about 25 bucks on Amazon. Got it into position, and then I'm going to put in the 3 Phillips head screws to hold it to the pump assembly. Sometimes little coins get in there and they hit the plastic impeller of the pump and break off the paddles, and then or loosen the impeller, and then the impeller will no longer spin, or because the paddle's broken, it can't move enough water to really make the drain effective. And that's what happened on this one. You can see the paddles on this one are kind of messed up. There should be 3 of them, and only one really still functional. The other 2 got worn off, probably again by hitting onto some metal. So it's always good to clean your pockets thoroughly before doing the wash, because if any metal or coins get into that assembly, it could be trouble. There's the dime that was in there. So just going to make sure that those 3 screws are on there tight. Now we'll feed it back in kind of the same way it came out. And once we get it in, we can add those Phillips head screws that are holding it to the frame. There we go. We'll reach in the back there and add the power wires back onto the spade connector, so they just slip on. You do want to make sure that they are on there fully and on there tight before you go to the next part. The next thing we would do after we get those wires on is we're going to go ahead and put the hoses back on. So the black hose goes on the front, we'll get that on, and then we'll use our pliers to put on the spring clamp. So on some of the LG washing machines, you can also do this procedure from the bottom. You can just lean the whole machine back, and there's actually a big hole or access area to do the procedure. On this one though, this version, there's a big plastic plate at the bottom, so you can't do it. You have to remove the front panel. So I'm putting the front panel back on. I put the door switch connector back on, so I want to get it into position and just make sure it's pushed in there strong, fully in there. There we go. And make sure the wire's out of the way. We're going to push it shut, and then we'll add those 2 Phillips head screws. They're kind of short. They're about maybe 1/8 of an inch long. They go in the upper right, upper left-hand corner. Okay, we got those. I'm going to reach in and grab that rubber gasket, and we're going to feed it back over the front panel, the middle ridge. Just going to go just about an inch at a time. I'm using 2 thumbs, one to kind of pull it out over the ridge, and the other one to push it down onto the ridge. I'm going to work around, make sure it's on nice and tight, and then I'll add the spring clamp back on. I always like to lubricate those spring clamps with some liquid detergent so they're a little more slippery, and that makes it much easier actually to get them back into the rubber groove on the front of the door gasket. Take a little more time when you get near the hinge, because there's not much room. It's a little bit harder to get on. Okay, we're going to get the control panel back in position. So I'm going to push in the top part first, and then I'll push in the bottom. And again, this is not the standard procedure. This is showing another way you could do it. Usually you want to take the top panel off, and then it's pretty easy to put this in. I'm just using a standard head screwdriver to pry it up a little bit so that the bottom part can fit in. I'm adding the Phillips head screws back that hold on the front panel. Get that one in. Put the detergent drawer back in. Alright, we're just going to test it, fill it with some water. And while that's filling, testing the fill and the agitation, put those two little screws back in at the bottom that are holding on the front panel. They're really tiny little screws. And then we'll put the plastic plate back in, and then we'll add two Phillips head screws that hold that on. So I'm just going to pause it. I'm going to switch to drain and spin. I want to test that drain feature now. Press start again. Get that other screw on, put the little tube back into position. I'll just slip the door back on, close it. So I'm putting a little bit of lubricant or liquid detergent on the spring clamp on the metal. And we got the door open again. I'm going to start at the 12 o'clock position, and then I'll pull down and apart and get the spring to go down at the lowest point at the 6 o'clock position. So that went on good. And then I'll close it. I'm going to fill it, testing it one more time for drain function. Got it at the drain, and start it. And it's working good. It's draining fast. So hope this has been helpful to you. And please subscribe to our channel when you get a chance. Thanks so much for watching.